Legacy Maker, the All Sports Network.
Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to one-on-one at Legacy Maker Sports Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's your man, Darrell Owens, and we are back for another edition of One-on-One here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network. But today, of course, we're bringing you quick ones, and we're bringing you our power rankings in the NFL for Week 2. We had a very interesting Week 1, so now we're going to bring you these power rankings as we head into Week 2. Of course, tonight, the Washington football team hosts the New York Giants, so we should see a really interesting matchup there. Two teams that took L's in Week 1 are hoping to get their first win of the season, especially in the division that's, to be honest with you, is probably going to be a very interesting division throughout the season. So we're glad to be able to bring you the heat here in this episode. Like I said, we're not going to be with you long, but we're going to definitely break down these power rankings as we go along. Now, before I get started, I wanted to dedicate this episode to a very special woman in my life. Unfortunately, I lost my Aunt Ernestine Cruz this week. One of the nicest, one of the greatest women you'll ever know. She took care of myself and my sister and just took care of my family throughout my childhood. She was always there for me and my sis and my mom and so many other of our family members when we were going through some tough times. So I love you, and the show is dedicated to you. And I'm glad that you finally get to be back home with my mom and Aunt Midgie and Aunt Hattie and grandma and grandpa and so on and so on. And of course your husband, John. So rest easy. I love you. And this one's for you. All right, y'all. So we're going to get this party started here as we get things rolling here on this power rankings for Week 2. Now, last week was a little bit long. We were trying to get everything established. I think this week, we got some segments we're going to break into to get this thing rocking and rolling. And we're going to start off with the bottom. Now, the bottom part of this power ranking heading into Week 2. First, we've got number 32 on this list, the Atlanta Falcons. They took a tough loss. It was ugly against the Philadelphia Eagles last week, losing 32-6. Matt Ryan just didn't have probably one of his best days, but just the Falcons just looked rough all the way around. And Philadelphia actually surprised a lot of people last week. Got the Falcons at 32. At 31, the New York Football Giants, who took a very tough loss to the Denver Broncos, and there was, some pictures going out on the intranet where you see the Giants, offensive linemen blocking their own players. It was just a whole bunch of just craziness throughout. But this Giants team, especially with all the additions they brought in, they just didn't look crisp in that first game. So, maybe things have changed. We didn't see that much from Saquon Barkley. We'll see, what happens here tonight as they take on the Washington football team. Next, we got the Jets at 30. Now, the Jets, for me, I thought that, they started off a little rough last week, but I think they finished strong. They definitely made some strides towards the end of the game. Zach Wilson went 20 for 37, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception in that contest. And who I was impressed with the most, or I guess what I was impressed with the most, is the Wilson-Davis connection. I keep telling y'all, watch out for this connection throughout the year. Then they already had a couple of receivers down, and just watching them two, kind of work together, and Zach Wilson, trying to get his thing together. I like what I saw there. Now, they did have Becton go down which, Mekhi Becton went down in this game, and that was not something that you want to see if you're a Jets fan. He's going to be out, I believe, a couple of weeks. They're going to definitely need to protect Wilson if they want to try to start winning some games this week. Now, I do have the Jets this week upsetting the Patriots in my Lone Ranger pick, but I just to throw that out there real quick. So just watch out for the Jets, see what they can do this week and see if they make me look good. 29, we got the Jaguars. The Jaguars took a beating to the Houston Texans last week. I mean, just an absolute beating. There was no nice way to put what happened to Jacksonville last week. At 28, we got the Bears, 0-1. The Bears lost to the Rams, and Matt Stafford looked good, but we'll get into that a little bit later and how good Matt Stafford looked in that contest. 27, the Panthers who beat the Jets in week 1. Sam Darnold didn't look too bad himself out there. Went 24 for 35, 279 yards, and a touchdown for Sam Darnold. And we got the Panthers at 27. At 26, we've got the Houston Texans. This is the one that I'm probably – yes, they played the Jaguars last week, but I was very, very, very impressed with one, Mr. Tyrod Taylor. If, he looked like he should be a starter all the time in the league. He should be a starter. He shouldn't have never lost jobs in certain places. He looked really good. He went 21 for 33, 291 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the biggest thing that I saw was just the confidence level of this team throughout. And I like what I saw from this team throughout. I got them at 26. So they jumped from 32 to 26 on this week's ranking. Great job by the Texans. Next, the Detroit Lions. We got them at 25. Even though they lost their game, they looked really bad at the beginning of that game, made things happen. They came back, but it just wasn't enough. 23, we got the Broncos. And the Broncos, the Broncos, they looked impressive. Teddy B looked impressive in that game. So that's why I got the Broncos. They made a baby leap in this bad boy, but I like the Broncos. They went 1-0. Next, we got the Colts. The Colts at 22. The Colts I wasn't surprised the outcome of the game, but it just didn't look crisp. That's the best way that I can put that. So we got the Colts at 22. They get a chance to redeem themselves this week against the Rams, but that does not look like that's going to be an easy task. Then at 21, we've got the Tennessee Titans. Titans got, I don't want to say bamboozled, but they got beat up against an Arizona Cardinals team who just came out from the get-go and just punched them in the mouth. But the biggest stat line from this game that if you're a Tennessee Titans fan, I would be a smidge worried, was at the end of the first half, I believe Derrick Henry only had 9 yards. He did finish up with 58, but it was in garbage time per se because the Cardinals were just phenomenal throughout this contest. So that is the bottom for this week. 32 through 21, Falcons 32, Giants 31, Jets 30, Jags 29, Bears 28, Panthers 27, Texans 26, Lions 25, Patriots 24, Broncos 23, Colts 22, and the Titans are 21. So at the bottom, looking at the bottom, I mean, I see a lot of potential in this bottom group of teams that probably will move up as the season go along. The Titans, the Texans. I would even say watch out for the Patriots as we go a little bit longer. The wild card team and all that, it's got to be Tyrod and the Texans, man. I mean, they got 3 Pro Bowl running backs. And Mark Ingram had himself a really nice day. I had a touchdown or 2, and then he had 85 yards. So I like what I saw there. I'll see if they keep that momentum going. They got a tough matchup against Cleveland this week, but we'll see if they can keep that momentum going. So now we hit to our next part of the breakdown here of our power rankings, our next segment, the outside looking in. Now, on our power rankings, we do this. Our top 15 is what's most important to us here. And I went 15 because 15 is my favorite number. But anywho, that's besides the point. Top 15 looking in, the top 15, and then we got our outside looking in. Well, let's look at the outside looking in. Let's look at numbers 20 through 16. And in this situation, we've got a couple of 0-1 teams in here, and some of them will be a little bit shocking, but let's look at number 20, the Philadelphia Eagles. And we talked about how good the Eagles looked in this game against the Atlanta Falcons. They came out there and it just was beautiful. Jalen Hurts, 3 touchdowns in this performance. He threw for 264 yards. 27 for 35. Just a really good game for Hurts. He ran the ball 7 times for 62 yards. Jalen Hurts just looked like he is the man in Philly. He wasn't playing games. He was ready to make things happen. And this Phillies team made me really rethink, because I was like going into this season thinking that this Philly team just doesn't know what they want. We don't know, where their mindset is. We don't know, what their objective is this season. It just felt everything was all over the place. But they come out game 1 and they look crisp. Yes, it was against a Falcons team that seems to be rebuilding. But from what I saw, I really like what I saw from Philadelphia in game 1. Now, number 19, we got the Vikings. The Vikings in overtime lost to Cincinnati. Now, this is one of the games I did pick right last week. I picked the Bengals to win this game, and they had a brother sweating at one point because, Kirk Cousins was doing his thing, trying to get this team back in the game, and they ended up going in to overtime. I mean, Kirk Cousins threw for 351 yards, 36 for 49 with 2 touchdowns. But I just was really impressed with Joe Burrow in this contest and what he was able to do. And, coming back from the injury, everybody was kind of worried, what he would look like. But, Joe Burrow looked phenomenal in this contest. As you see, we got the Bengals at 17. So it was a close matchup, but the Bengals took a jump last week. They went from 20 to 17. So they're creeping. We'll see how they do this week. But I like what I saw from the Bengals, and it was a great contest. If you like football, you like a good entertaining game, that Vikings-Bengals game last week was very entertaining. And number 18, we got the Washington football team. Washington took kind of a major blow last week because Ryan Fitzpatrick got injured, and he is right now sidelined at least, I believe, 3 to 6 weeks. He's going to be out for a little bit. So Taylor Heineke will come in and be the starter. Taylor had a pretty decent day once he came in, 11 for 15 for 122 yards and a touchdown. So now we get to see what a lot of Washington fans wanted to see, and to see if Taylor Heineke can come in and be the guy. And we'll find that out tonight as they take on a New York football giant team. Then, if you had to be impressed with anything, you're looking on the LA Chargers side of things. Justin Herbert, oh boy, Justin Herbert. He looked phenomenal, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. Washington at 18. Now, we already talked about the Bengals. Let's swing to 16 and the Green Bay Packers. Now, y'all know I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, so the disappointment level is strong right now. The disappointment level is strong right now. When I read you these statistics, you tell me if it's Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers that had these statistics. 15 for 28, 133 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, a sack, and a QBR of 13.4. And I know most of y'all will be like, "Oh, that's Jordan Love, hands down." Oh no, sir. That was the returning MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Extremely tough game for this team. And I don't want to take anything away from the Saints, because the Saints came out and they did exactly what they needed to do. They looked crisp, and this Packers team looked horrible. Aaron Jones only had 5 rushes for 9 yards, but most of that was because they had to throw the ball because they had got down so early. A.J. Dillon ended up leading the way with 4 carries and 19 yards. So just only 43 yards for this Packers team. It was hard to watch. Let's just put that. We did see Jordan Love in this contest. He went 5 for 7, 68 yards. He got sacked, and he also had a fumble when it looks like Green Bay was going to actually score a touchdown. He fumbled in the red zone. So Packers fans, as a Packer fan myself, I'm going to try to look past this, but it's going to be tough because we've seen this over the last couple of years where, the Packers have that one game a year where they just look miserable. A few years back, it was the Chargers. Then we had 2 games like that again when in 2019 when we played San Francisco. Then last year, of course, the Bucs, and then this year we get the Saints in this process. So, hopefully we're getting it out the way now, because if not, it's going to be a long season for Packers fans. All right, so that's the outside looking in, and now we're going to hit our top 15 of the power rankings. Now, I had to do a lot of debate as I was going and trying to figure out where I wanted to put teams in this, and that's the fun thing about power rankings, because you just kind of get into it and you're like, man, where do I go? What do I do? What do I move on this bad boy? So we're going to go ahead, give you our top 15, and then we got another segment that we're going to bring to you as well. But let's do it. Top 15. Week 2, number 15, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, oh man, this game on Monday night was probably one of the funnest games that I've seen in a while. And even though they lost this contest, the energy level on Monday night in Vegas was absolutely phenomenal. But if you're a Ravens fan, you're probably going back and looking and saying, man, their offensive line wasn't the best. And, Lamar Jackson had to put a lot on his shoulders in this contest, and he fumbled the ball. He fumbled the ball 3 times. And if you're a Ravens fan, you don't want to see your quarterback fumble the ball 3 times, but he did. They had 4 fumbles overall. 2 of them they lost, and the Raiders, would eventually capitalize. And the Raiders took advantage of all that energy at home, and they won this contest 33-27 in overtime. Great Monday Night Football game. We got the Ravens at 15. At 14, we got the LA Chargers, and we talked about the LA Chargers and how good Herbert, looked at times in that contest. There was a couple of times the Washington defense got to him and kind of gave him, a little bit of a push. But overall, the LA Chargers get out of Washington with a week 1 victory, and then they have to travel back home to take on the Dallas Cowboys this week. So that should be a fun one. At 13, we talk about the Vegas Raiders. They're 1-0. They're number 13 on my list. They're, like I said, very impressive in that game against the Ravens. I like what I saw from the defense. It looked like they really stepped up. Their defense has been a little bit rough. Probably one of the worst defenses in the league since John Gruden has taken over. So it was good to see, if you're a Raiders fan, good to see them play hard, play tough. And Derek Carr threw for 400 yards. 400. He threw for 400 yards. I believe it was 405. And he just had a really good game. And you want to see that from Derek Carr. Guy almost won MVP a couple years ago. But he should have won MVP a couple years ago before he got hurt. So Vegas finishing strong, and they're at number 13. And Vegas made a big leap. For those who are paying attention to the power rankings, Vegas went from 21 all the way up to 13 this week. That's an 8-spot jump for the Vegas Raiders. Next, we got the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, 14 last week, 12 this week. I move them up 2 spots. Very impressive at the beginning part of the Detroit Lions game. But then the wheels kind of fell off. I almost dropped them back a little bit, but I got to give credit for pulling off the win. It was a crazy game. Jared Goff tried to lead that team back, that Lions team back to try to get the dub, but it just wasn't enough. I got San Francisco at 12, but if you're a 49ers fan, a thing to be worried about is your running game, and you're starting to see injuries pile up a little bit here at a time. Losing Morissette is not what you wanted to see if you are a San Francisco 49ers fan. And now you're waiting to see if Trey Sermon and what he can do. They had Mitchell come in and kind of had to be the guy for San Francisco. He had 19 carries for 104 yards. So Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana, he was a 6th-round pick in this year's draft. So watch out for him. And like I said, we're still going to see Sermon and see what he could do. But Raheem Morissette, I always destroy his name, so I apologize. But he's gone for this season. So it's that running game for San Francisco will be an interesting problem over the season to see if they can kind of figure that out. Number 11, the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, tough win against the Patriots, 17-16. And Tua, I like what I saw from Tua, but what I saw the most was from his receiver Jalen Waddle. Waddle played exceptionally well for this team. Waddle, who had 4 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown. He looked great. He looked great for this Dolphins team. And Very tough win in New England on the road. So let's see what the Dolphins can do this week. They've got a tough opponent in the Buffalo Bills this week who are coming off of a loss. So we're going to see if they're going to be able to bounce back from that. Speaking of the Buffalo Bills, we enter our top 10. The Buffalo Bills are number 10 on this list. Tough loss to Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh gritted that one out in Buffalo. And I got to give a shout out to our guy, Joe Dillard, on the Legacy Maker Sports Network for being the Lone Ranger in this contest. The only person of our NFL experts who are doing the pick'em this year. He's the only person that picked Pittsburgh, and he picked up the dub. It always feels good when you can get a Lone Ranger pick in your favor. I haven't been so lucky yet. We'll see how the Jets treat me this week. Next, we move to number 9 and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speaking of this Pittsburgh Steelers team, they played tough. They played so well against Buffalo last week. They grinded it out, and then in that second half, they cranked up the juice. Buffalo went into halftime with a 10-0 lead and looking pretty good, and then Pittsburgh came out there and outscored them 23-6 in the second half, and they were able to do some good things there and get the W. A W that a lot of people didn't see coming, as we talked about before. With you being a Buffalo fan, like I was saying, it is a tough first loss of the season, and with Josh Allen and all the expectations, you kind of want to see a little bit more. Yeah, he threw the ball 50 times, but he was 30 for 51. 270 yards and a touchdown. So you want to see a little bit more from this team and see what they can produce. But it was definitely one of those playoff grinder type of games. So Pittsburgh got the dub. We kept Pittsburgh at 9. They're probably one of the only other teams that didn't move in the power rankings this week. Next, the New Orleans Saints. Yes, the New Orleans Saints have jumped up in my bracket here. They went from 15 to 8. Almost put him a little bit higher, but I still, before I give Jameis Winston all of his flowers, I wanted to see what he can do, as the weeks come along. They got the Panthers this week, but a great performance from Jameis Winston against, a lot of people's eyes, maybe, the Super Bowl winning team in the Green Bay Packers this season. But after that performance coming from this Packers fan, I did not see any of that. But Jameis Winston absolutely looked great. 14 for 20, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. And then you say, well, wait a minute, Darrell. The numbers are not great. Those 5 touchdowns are great. And you put them in the position. They gave them the field range, and you can't do that. You can't keep giving them that great field position and thinking that, we're just going to be all right. No, Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints capitalized. That's why they're number 8 on this list. And if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, based off of Packers history, guess what? The New Orleans Saints are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Next, the Cleveland Browns. Now, this one right here, number 7, the Cleveland Browns. This is probably the most disappointing one for me this week because Cleveland had that game well in hand. They looked good. They were up 22-10 over the Chiefs. Things were just looking in their favor. And then the Chiefs became the Chiefs. They went into halftime with that 22-10 lead. And then Pat Mahomes and the crew said, well, I think we're tired of losing now. They go in there. They go on a 23-7 run to win this game 33-29. It was a crazy game and another very exciting week 1 game. But in the end, Pat Mahomes and the crew found a way. This Browns team, a lot of talent, and we saw that. This Browns team is really good, and we saw that. We saw what they could do against the defending AFC champions. And they just couldn't pull it off. No Odell Beckham Jr. He was held out last week. He's going to get held out again this week. They want to make sure he's ready. A lot of fans are anxious to see what OBJ can do when he gets back. But if you're a Cleveland fan, also you want to make sure he's healthy when he gets back. So we got the Cleveland Browns because they're extremely talented. We still got them in the top 10. They're at number 7. Next, we got the Dallas Cowboys at number 6. And now the Dallas Cowboys have moved up 4 spots. And it was a debate. I really had to buckle down, but I like the performance that I've seen from Dallas against Tampa Bay last Thursday night. I thought Dallas to be honest with you, they had the game. They had the game won, but they haven't learned one lesson that has happened to them over the years, and is that you cannot give a talented quarterback like Tom Brady a minute and 24 seconds. Aaron Rodgers did it to him a couple years ago, but they did not learn their lesson. You cannot leave Thomas Brady with a minute 24. We've seen him win Super Bowls, you name it, countless games with that much time on the clock. You just can't give him that much time. But besides that, the performance from Dak Prescott was amazing in my opinion. I love what I saw from Dak last week. He threw the ball 58 times with 42 completions, but he had 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. But when I watch Dak on the field, his confidence level is different than what it was in the past. I like what I've seen from this Dallas team, even in the loss to the Super Bowl champions. I love what I saw. Amari Cooper doing Amari Cooper things, 13 receptions for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, man, CeeDee Lamb had 7 receptions for 104 yards. This team is going to sling the football. But a person that got lost in all this mix is Ezekiel Elliott. 11 carries for only 33 yards. And in the beginning or at the end of the first half, he only had 4 carries. That's a concern to me. They've got to find a way to get this running game going because Dallas, no matter how good they are passing, they've got to get that running game crisp as the season goes along. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hit into our top 5 teams in the power ranking here. And like I said, a lot of deliberation as we went along, but I feel really confident. And if you're an NFC West fan, you're probably thinking, man, we've only seen one NFC West team so far in this countdown. And that was the 49ers back at 12. So, Darrell, you must really feel good about the NFC West. You know, we talked about it in our preview show. Well, I do. And at number 5, we got the LA Rams. Very impressive victory over the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. And we talked about how good Matt Stafford was a little bit earlier in the show and what Matt Stafford, could do. And he just, went out there 20 for 26, 321 yards, 3 touchdowns, and it just looked good. He came out there and just made things happen. Cooper Kupp, 7 receptions for 108 yards. Van Jefferson had a nice play in the beginning of the game. He had 2 receptions for 80 yards, and he ended up getting a touchdown. But this team looks very balanced. And, that's what I'm excited about if you're a Rams fan. They look very balanced. Darrell Henderson, 16 carries for 70 yards. They brought in Sonny Michel, but he only got the rock one time. So, regardless of that, though, they just look good. And then obviously that defense is that defense. Hollins had 2 sacks in the contest, as well as Aaron Donald, who also got himself a sack. So this defense, with that offense looking as crisp as they did in that first game, we got the Rams at number 5. Number 4, the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, I almost put them at 3, y'all. I'm not even going to lie to y'all. Almost put them at number 3. But Arizona came out and they smacked the Tennessee Titans right in their mouths. And it wasn't close. I don't think at any point that I can remember other than when the score was 0-0. It just wasn't close. And the way they held King Henry in check throughout this contest really made me say, wow, man, they really held my man in check throughout this contest. So what I saw, from Kyler Murray is he continues to grow. He continues to be one of the best young quarterbacks in this league. He's a leader on that team. And I love Kyler Murray. And it's hard for me to root against him because he's just such a talented young player, and he's tough. He's still learning, he's still growing, but I love what I saw from him. Now, I got to give love what love is due before we move to number 3, and that is from the man, myth, and the legend himself, Mr. Chandler Jones. 5, count them, 5 sacks, ladies and gentlemen, on the day. 5. He was cruising. So, more love to Chandler Jones on that end. But this Cardinals team looks like they're ready to take over the West. My man Lamont had them winning the division. I had them in second place, but we'll see as time goes along. Number 3, the Seattle Seahawks. And this, even though I felt like the Cardinals had a better week, I think that the Seahawks they did a really good game. But then when you have Russell Wilson, that quarterback play means a ton. And his, leadership and being a 9-year vet, I gave him the slight edge over Arizona heading into week 2. But I will say this: Arizona is dangerous. The Seattle team looked really good, and I like the fact that Russell had a perfect quarterback rating, and he was out there letting them have it. So his QBR was 84.6, but his quarterback rating was 58.3, which is as perfect as it could get. He went 18 for 23, 254 yards and 4 touchdowns in the contest. They had a good movement from the running game, and Carson had 16 carries for 91 yards. So I love what I saw there. Lockett had 100 yards receiving. Metcalf had 60. Lockett had 2 touchdowns. Metcalf had a touchdown. They look comfortable in this contest against the Colts, and unfortunately, it just didn't look like a contest at all for the Colts. So we got the Seahawks at number 3. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I've seen a lot of power rankings where the Chiefs are the number 1 team in the league, and I was going to go in that same direction, but I also feel like that, it's hard for me to unseed the number 1 team if they didn't lose. But we'll see how things go this week. The Buccaneers, they'll have their hands full this week. And, the Chiefs have their hands full this week. They got the Ravens, and the Buccaneers will be taking on the Falcons this week. I lie. They don't have their hands full. The Falcons are going to get destroyed. I'm sorry, James. I hope you're not listening to this. But anywho, I look at this and say it's hard for me to serve, just push the Bucs out of the way, out of the number 1 spot. Kansas City just looks really good. They struggled in that first half of that game, but in that second half, Pat Mahomes, and we got him at number 2. Number 1, of course, as you already know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's hard for me to kick them out of the number 1 spot unless they play miserable this week. Kansas City pulls it off. We'll see how next week flows. But the defending champs, when they needed to find a way to get the dub, they got the dub. Number 1 in the power rankings for myself, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, so those are our rankings right now. And it's the first week of the NFL was fun to watch. I really enjoyed it. The first week was a lot of fun. And I really thought that we just got, some good football overall. And we saw some teams that surprised in victories, like the Texans, or looked good, I should say. I wouldn't say a surprising victory because they're playing the Jaguars, but they looked good in the contest. We saw the Eagles look really good in that contest against the Falcons. The Broncos came out and they looked good. So those are teams I feel like you got to kind of watch to see if they can piggyback off of that week 1 victories and see if they can continue that growth. The Bengals being another team that I feel like we got to see if they can continue that growth. But the Bengals this week, they are taking on the Bears. I think they get that dub this week because Chicago kind of still doesn't know what, they got Andy starting, but we still just don't know. So I look at that and say we got a good week of football coming up for week 2. We got a game tonight between Washington and New York. I am taking Washington in that game. We do have one Lone Ranger pick for that game, and the Lone Ranger goes to none other than our own Cody Stewart. He's the only person on our squad that decided to go with the New York Football Giants, which I'm not surprised. Why? Because he is a Giants fan. So he did go Lone Ranger on that one for tonight's game, but it should be a fun one. I'm going to go with a score of 23-17. Washington wins that one. Now, before we run away, there is one last segment we want to introduce to our power rankings this week, and this is our top 5 MVP candidates, and we're going to build up on it as the weeks go along. And this is just a rough edge one to get started. Here are my top 5 going into week 2. Number 5, Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones went out there and balled out. Chandler went out there, got himself 5 sacks, and helped that Arizona Cardinals defense dominate the Tennessee Titans in their contest last week. Then I got Russell Wilson coming in at number 4. Now, I had a lot of debate here because there was a couple of other players I had thought about putting in this mix, but Russell, just like I said, with the perfect quarterback rating, and just how persistent this team was last week against that Colts team, a really good Colts defense at that. I got Russell in the squad. I got Russell at number 4, with his 4 touchdown performance. Then at number 3, I got Jameis Winston. I want to give Jameis Winston love, even though he only threw 448 yards, 5 touchdowns, and against a Packers team that was ranked 9th defensively last year. And on top of that, the poise that he showed. And I talked to my boy, Raphael Hayes of the 3-point conversion. We had talked earlier this week, and we talked about, the leadership that Jameis Winston. He's always been a leader, even though that people make fun of him, the crab legs, the eating the W's and all that stuff. Jameis Winston is a good football player when it comes down to it. And he's just trying to find his way. But we got Jameis Winston at number 3. Number 2, Dak Prescott. I just said a couple minutes ago on how amazing the game was, that the Buccaneers and the Cowboys played last Thursday night, and Dak throwing for 400 yards plus, just amazing in that contest. And then number 1, of course, is Pat Mahomes. When you're down 22-10, and then you say, all right, let's turn up the juice. They go out there and they beat a very, very, very balanced and very tough Cleveland Browns team. So this is my way too early list of top 5 MVP candidates heading into week 2. And so we'll see if these guys can continue this next week this week as we get into week 2 of the NFL season. All right, everybody. I'm your man, Darrell Owens. This has been our power rankings. We're going to go through one more time before we get out of here so you can see the power rankings. And then next week, we'll be back next Thursday to bring you more heat here on 101's Quick Ones Power Rankings edition. So real quick, let's go through everybody here. Last time, Falcons 32, Giants 31, Jets 30, Jaguars 29, Bears 28, Panthers 27, Texans 26, the Lions 25, the Patriots 24, the Broncos 23, the Colts 22, and the Titans 21. That's at the bottom. And then in the outside looking in, you got the Eagles at 20, the Vikings at 19, the Washington football team at 18, the Bengals at 17, and probably the most surprising one of the whole thing, the Packers at 16, dropping 13 slots down to 16. 13 slots. I'm going to try not to be upset. Now, moving to our top 15, we got the Ravens at 15, the Chargers at 14, the Raiders at 13, the 49ers at 12, the Dolphins at 11, the Bills at 10, the Steelers 9, the Saints 8, the Browns 7, the Cowboys 6, at 5, the Los Angeles Rams, who jumped all the way from 18 to 5. That's a 13 slot pickup. And I believe that was the biggest move of the week, was coming from 18 to 5 in the Rams case. Then we have the Arizona Cardinals at 4, the Seattle Seahawks at 3, the Kansas City Chiefs at 2, and number 1, the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, everybody. I'm your man, Darrell Owens. This has been 101 Quick Ones NFL Power Rankings Week 2. Thank you all for tuning in. Can't wait to see y'all back for Week 3 next week. It's been a fun one so far. We got also make sure y'all check out the Legacy Maker Sports Podcast, episode 278. We will be bringing you predictions. Bringing you predictions for the week. Also giving you our recaps of week 1. Me and myself and Jeremiah Quimby. We got Commonwealth Sports Talk also going down. Make sure you check that out. They got Kiana Brown, the assistant athletic director for UNC Wilmington women's basketball. Basketball operations director for UNC Wilmington. So make sure y'all check that out. That'll be 7 o'clock before the game. So make sure y'all check that one out as well. Once again, I'm Darrell Owens, Legacy Maker Sports Network. This has been 101.
Welcome to the 101. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one.